Slimehouse TV, myself, Theo Kane. Hope everybody's having a good Christmas so far if you're somebody that celebrates it. And because it is so close to Christmas and because it's a Toy Talk Tuesday episode, in today's show I wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit more special, and bring a guest onto the episode. So in today's episode, I am joined by none other than Brian Levant. So Brian Levant is not only the director of one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time, Jingle All The Way, as well as a bunch of other classics, he's also a big-time toy collector. So much so that recently he has archived his entire collection into a new book that he's released called My Life and Toys. I'm super buzzing to get into this episode today. It's so rare that I get to speak to somebody that's not only a director but also really into toys as well. This is like a dream come true to have this conversation with him today. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's speak to Brian Levant, director of Jingle All The Way, Beethoven, the Flintstones. So much cool stuff and also a big time toy collector. I'm buzzing for this. Let's go. Brian Levant, how you doing today? It's an absolute pleasure to have you on Slimehouse.
Well, thank you. It's a privilege and an honor, I'm sure.
Well, the thing with me is I speak to so many directors and filmmakers, and I also speak to a lot of toy designers and toy collectors, but it's rare, it's never a thing that I get to speak to someone who walks between both of those worlds as much as you do. Someone who's a big director and a big toy collector. Like, I'm not just saying it, it's an absolute honor to be able to chat to you today.
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind. But you should talk to more animators because I find whenever I see the office of someone at Pixar or Disney or Blue Sky, their offices are always filled with toys, and I always see that people who collect toys and related pop culture stuff, that they are generally very joyful people and people whose exuberance extends beyond their persona, and they want to be surrounded by bright, colorful, happy things. And I certainly fit in that world. And looking behind you, I think you do as well.
Yeah, no, I 100% get it. And I think that's another reason why we get in the collecting world. I'm sure because you've been in it many years like I have, you meet a lot of these like exaggerated characters, a lot of these people that whenever you watch these shows like Storage Hunters and Storage Wars, there's always that like extreme guy there that's like the big toy collector guy. And I love meeting those people. And you're right, they're the kind of people that's often just surrounded by this stuff 24/7.
Yeah.
Like I can see behind you. It's a way of life when you've done it for this long, I feel.
Well, this room is all the stuff from my work, from my TV work on Happy Days and Mork and Mindy, and from the Flintstone movies, all the Happy Meals and the figures, and all my Jingle All The Way
Of course.
stuff. Yeah, it's still hard for me to believe that last year, 25 years after the film came out, that the toy that we had designed in 1996 that we thought was going to fly off the shelves and be the hottest toy in the world, Turbo Man, died the death of a dog on the shelves of stores worldwide. And then last year, Funko did a whole line of Funko Pops and did an exact copy of our Turbo Man doll. And our dreams came true. Turbo Man was, for a time last fall, the hottest toy in America.
That's amazing. Because I've got the original Turbo Man doll. I picked that up years ago. And then I got the new one. And side by side, like there's very little difference. Other than it says Funko in the top. Yeah. There's so little difference. I feel like it's one of them because I saw on your Instagram that you said at the time that the toy didn't fly like you wanted it to fly. And then all these years later, now it's again the hottest selling toy. And I think it's because when it came out at the time, it was very much of the era. There was lots of action figures on TV and Saturday morning cartoons and stuff was still a big thing. There were lots of action figures you could buy. But then now we missed that era. So the opportunity to go and buy a Turbo Man now is like amazing.
Well, I just think the Tiger Turbo Man toy didn't sell because the movie didn't sell. It was a failure. It was a box office disaster, both domestically and overseas. We barely, I think the studio never recouped Arnold's salary, much less the rest of the production costs.
But it's crazy because all these years later now you're doing like I saw you recently doing a screening.
It's become kind of an annual thing that's playing in many places across the country this year and over the past 10, 15 years. And there's just been a resurgence, a rediscovery of Jingle All the Way, and I'm very grateful for it. And it's become a part of many families' holiday activities that they
Yeah.
all gather to watch Jingle All the Way. And at first, it started kind of small. I spend a lot of time on campuses. I teach at two colleges every year, and people would. The only thing they'd ever ask me to sign, not that many people ever asked me to sign anything, but they'd come up shyly with their worn VHS tapes of Jingle All the Way, saying, "This is my family's copy. We watch it every year." I'm going, really? Yeah.
No, I
uh,
get it.
uh,
My Christmas holiday season isn't complete unless I've watched that film. Even if I haven't got a chance to sit down and watch it properly, it's on in the background at some point. Like it's a staple of many people I know homes as every
yes,
single
no,
year.
and I appreciate, and I hope they get what Fox called now Disney owns it, the Family Fun Edition, which is basically the director's cut, which is a few scenes longer and a couple scenes that aren't in the movie, and the tag that came after the end of the end credits is tied together with the end of the film, so you don't have to fast forward through three
Okay.
songs to get to
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, it was a thing, weren't it? Because I know Randy Cornfield wrote the movie, but you being a toy collector and someone who made movies, this must have been like a dream project for you to become a part of.
When I opened the script, the very first page said the credits roll as we view the manufacturing of the Turbo Man figures. And
Ah,
basically they had me there. I said, I get to design a toy line. I get to make toys. I'll have a shelf filled with Turbo Man and Booster and Dementor and the Demon Team. Uh, and so maybe I should have paid more attention to character development and things like that, rather than just be so focused on the fact that I could fulfill a dream and create a toy line, not just a toy line, but a toy line that uh, was in such demand that it was impossible to even get. No, they were gone. They were sold out,
yeah.
and you know that that's nectar to this hummingbird.
Well, we have those toys every single year, don't they? Like I mean, not so much anymore because toys are a completely different thing now. I find kids are more interested in sat on their phone and playing Fortnite and things. But especially like when I was growing up, there was always that toy every year that was like really hard to
Right.
find. And I remember like when the Cabbage Patch Kids come out in the mid '80s, like
And
parents rioting to get the kid a Cabbage Patch doll. Is
right.
that where a lot of the idea came from?
And that, yes, I believe Randy Cornfield's difficulties in securing one for his kid, for his daughter, is what inspired him to write the screenplay. It was a good idea, but now you talk about, well, it used to be a problem to get. Now you can just order one online, right?
Yeah,
Have it
yeah,
delivered to your door. But you look at how far we've come in 26 years. I'm watching Jingle All the Way with an audience the other night, and I'm saying, "Oh my God, they're talking on cell phones. Oh my God, we shot this on film. Uh, oh my God, you know." There was no online shopping. There were toy stores still. Now
yeah.
in America, they're all gone. Except for a few mom and pop holdouts
That's
on
right.
Main Street. The collecting world has changed, and the manufacturing systems and distribution systems have evolved tremendously, and it's much easier to be a toy collector today than it was a quarter century ago. I mean, you have access not only to toys from around the world, through eBay, through the you can get them directly from the artists. And I love the whole
Yeah,
concept of designer toys and people making their own. I mean, with 3D printers, a little knowledge and an imagination, you can create your own line,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then sell it to be a movie.
And I find now, because I mentioned this on a recent video when I was talking about designer toys and Sofubi and stuff, some of those new designers actually do like a lotto, like a lottery, in order for you to, if you want
Right?
to
Yeah.
have one of those toys, you have to do a lottery. And I referenced the Jingle All The Way, the balls that they get given, like we're going to give everyone a ball, like a lottery. And it's funny that that was like a thing they'd do for a mainstream toy, but that's now that like designer toy artists are doing for their Sofubi because it's that
Well,
in demand.
but that's what keeps it. The limited edition is what creates value, and uh, and that's why I worry about everybody who's collecting Funko Pops. Yeah, they're producing such mass quantity. I am afraid they're going to go the way of the Beanie Baby,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
everybody had to have them. The prices were soaring, and then there was so many that the demand was so easily met that it brought the price down
Yeah.
on the aftermarkets.
It was crazy in the like the early 2000s. I'd be at the toy shows with my dad, and he was big into the vintage Pallet Toy Action Man and stuff like that, which would have been at GI Joe over there. And it was either people were either selling like the original kind of Star Wars. Still, they were always big, and your $6 million man. But so many stalls were full of Beanie Babies. I don't see one TY Beanie Baby at a toy show anymore. But there was like, yeah, there was
You
that
see them here
urgency
and
to
there.
buy them back then.
Yeah. They're dog toys today.
Yeah. Do you know, being yourself such a big toy collector, someone who has got like such a vast collection, and I want to talk about the collection later on when we speak about the book. But some of it, because you've obviously seen that generation between where you had to go out and hunt for it and actually physically be out there, and even if it was at toy shows and auctions where you knew you were getting that good high end stuff, to now where you can like just sit on eBay and buy it all. How do you feel about how it's changed now? Do you
I,
still like to do the hunt, or do you like to sit at home and click the mouse?
I was a hunter and a gatherer,
Yeah,
and you would see things in a book or once upon a time at a show, and you didn't have the money, and you'd have to search for things. And today it's kind of becoming what buffalo hunting became in America in the 1860s. It was just so many of them. You just sit there and just knock them down. You can get whatever you want. There is no toy that is impossible to find anymore. Although it did take me decades to find my uh, Leave It to Beaver magic slate, one of those they used to sell for like a dime, and
yeah,
and it was just a piece of like crayon covered wax kind of paper with the thinnest of plastic sheets, a gray one, and then you would with your stylus, for lack of a better word,
yeah, yeah. I know what
yeah,
you're
you
saying.
would draw on it and it would retain it until you lifted the paper and you could start over. So this took me 20 years to find that, and I saw one and they wanted like $400 for it. I said that's ridiculous. I'm not paying for that.
Yeah.
And then I had to wait another 20 years before I found one for $29, and I was so excited when I finally got it. I almost cut it in half opening the box.
Yeah. Well, I find if you're in this game for long enough, everything will come round full circle for you. There's so many things that's on my grail list, the grail list that we've all got, and I see people like trying to sell something for a ridiculous price because it's like hot right now, and I think I don't mind. I'll wait 20 years and get it then. I'll get it in. I'll get it in 10 years. I'll get it
Oh,
in
you're
20
taking a
years.
chance it could be a lot more valuable.
Yeah, 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 and that's the other thing. It could also go up ridiculous, but at least yeah, I don't like to get suckered into that culture of everything being like everything's worth money now. 90s toys now have gone crazy, whereas
Well,
like 10 years ago, you couldn't sell 90s toys. You couldn't give them away. 90s toys. My dad had boxes of them that weren't worth anything, and now they're the ones that people's trying to sell for ridiculous money. I don't like to I don't like to feed that beast.
I'm lucky in that I don't do any of this for financial gain
Yeah,
whatsoever,
yeah,
uh,
same. Yeah,
and to me, I'm not a person who only gets mint in the box. I rarely do. I actually prefer things that have wear on them, that were loved,
yeah, I get that.
that were cared for. And it's nice to get something from the 30s or something that's in mint condition, but yeah, you almost want to see, well, nobody played with it. What's wrong? What was wrong with that?
What kid? What a kid did this belong to that they
Yeah,
didn't
then
even
they say,
take it out of
"Oh,
the
no,
box?
thanks." I'll just
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
just put it in the attic for 40 years.
It's interesting to speak to yourself because a lot of the stuff that you collect, it's from not only a generation that was like before me, because I see a lot of that stuff around growing up. My dad, who was a toy dealer and stuff, but it's a lot of like vintage Americana and things like that. So I wanted to ask you, like, how far does your collecting scope go back? And then also, like, how long have you even been a toy collector? Is it something that you've done all your life, or is it something that you got into like later on when you like rediscovered that nostalgia that we all get when you rediscover all this stuff again, and then you just want to buy everything?
Well, that's two big questions.
Yeah, yeah,
So first, my collections really begin in the 20s with the emergence of toys of silent film stars, Charlie Chaplin, Harold Lloyd, and Laurel and Hardy. Then in the 20s, you start to get comic strip characters, Blondie and Dagwood. In 1928, Popeye joined the Thimble Theater, which had been around since 1925 and 1927, and immediately kind of became the star of the show and took it over. And and into the 30s, where comic books emerged as major forces of entertainment, and then into the 40s, where you started to see a lot more premiums, things related to radio shows like Little Orphan Annie, Charlie McCarthy, and Edgar Bergen, Bob Hope, Flash Gordon, The Shadow. All these radio
yeah.
shows, had spin-offs in big books and puppets and a lot of space stuff from Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon that came from the comic strips and became serials, and
Mm,
Hollywood starting to co opt comic book characters, Captain Marvel, Batman and Robin, Superman cartoons made by the Fleischer Studios, who made the beautiful Popeye cartoons for Paramount for 30 years. And then you get into television, which really expanded its reach to the young audience by programming different parts of the day towards different audiences. So, in order to take advantage of those audiences, toy manufacturers started 40,000 licenses for the Howdy Doody show, a pioneering American show for kids. It ran from 1947 to 1960. Captain Kangaroo, who was part of the Howdy Doody cast originally, and learned their playbook and their merchandising and personal appearances, and an endless amount of games, puppets, books, records. And as animation became less of a theatrical happening and more of a television programming, that the toy makers swooped in and made everything under the sun, from the Flintstones and the Jetsons and Mighty Mouse and Deputy Dog and the thousands of others, and the cereal companies got into the act. And,
yeah,
and one time Kellogg's had an exclusive deal with Hanna-Barbera, whose characters were featured on their boxes, and you could send away for premiums, and things at the bottom of the box, and send away, collect all five,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. They never do that
and
anymore.
then, right, and because kids no longer came home for lunch like they did in the old days, lunch boxes became big. So there's all these ancillary products that grew out of the expansion of media, especially after World War II, the largest growth in population in the history of the world. And so you had a whole new audience for these things and in new ways of reaching them. Plus, across Europe, across America, it was also a time of a lot of financial growth as well, which meant that people had more money to spend, not only on TVs and cars and homes, but also on toys for your kids. And so manufacturing was expanded, and Japan became what China is today, a source of cheap labor for manufacturing on large scales.
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing to me about the toys of the post World War II era, particularly from the TV shows, is that there weren't style guides the way there are today, so that
Mm.
everything everyone does is uniform.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
You're
was
right.
really For instance, the Flintstones wasn't even shown in Japan in the first 4 years or so. It was in black and white. So nobody would have any idea what they really
Yeah, the
looked
color
like,
scheme. Yeah.
or what color their outfits or their hair was. So it was much more interpretive. It's much more like fan art is
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of sad that every Simpsons toy you will ever see will look exactly the same,
Yeah.
because it is the uniqueness of these things that I find most interesting. And in my book, my Life in Toys, we do many pages where my partner and my brother-in-law and one of the top commercial photographers in the United States, Joe Pellegrini, uh, calls our high school yearbooks, where you just take 30 or 36 different close-ups of different Superman, and
Yeah.
they're all super, but they all look different. The same thing with Fred Flintstone or the Beatles, and it's someone's interpretation of them. And that's what makes it fun and makes those items unique.
Well, talking a little bit about your book, obviously, all these toys have all been put into the book, and that's what we're mainly here to talk about today, is this amazing new book that you've got out. But I
Yeah.
liked how you said that, even on your Instagram, you said that all these pictures are my own, the stuff that I own. You've not like gone outsourcing other people's collections just so that you can archive everything. It's really your own personal experience of these toys, and you've also put it together. The book starts like you're in therapy for this stuff. Like you got that like plastic crack addiction that we all have as toy collectors. So yeah,
Yeah, no, well,
I liked how it was all your own stuff in there, your own experience
it,
of it.
no, it is all mine. I have thousands and thousands of pieces that I've assembled to answer the second part of your
Yeah,
question over the past half century. I was a comic book collector when I was a kid. I didn't collect things so much as there were toys that I had to
mm,
have, that
yeah,
I couldn't live without, and you badger your parents until they deliver. Was my experience, and I've reacquired some of those. In terms of the book, it's really a summation of a half a century of collecting, and intertwined with a half a century of my career. My world is a bit unique in that, watching the premiere of the Flintstones, that you have no idea that how many years that almost 40 years later, you're going to be at the creative helm of the franchise, under the supervision of one of the finest filmmakers who ever walked the earth.
yeah,
And take this show that you watched as a little boy and try and share your affection for it and what you loved, and bring it literally to life for the first time. And the same thing is true of Happy Days, which I watched the premiere, home from college
mm,
over Christmas vacation. And who knew that just a few years later, I would end up working on over 100 episodes of that series and be the beneficiary of being able to collect some of the 20,000 licensed products
yeah, yeah,
that came along with the show, and its spin-offs, Laverne and Shirley and Mork and Mindy, which I also produced
yeah,
Mork
yeah,
and Mindy towards the end of its brief fiery life. Um, but the toys were great, and so the book really combines all of my interests, and not just of TV and comic characters, although there's a great Superman and Batman chapter and a great Jingle chapter. There are entire chapters on the Jetsons, on the Munsters, on Leave It to Beaver, on animated toys from Disney and Warner Brothers, and everything in between. Uh, I collect Hulk Hogan. Don't ask me how it started. I just wanted to get something off the shelf. The when a advertising vinyl cost more than my car payment, I was looking for something I could just get and show right away. And they were colorful and fun. And there was a Hulk Hogan camera, color forms, cassettes,
yeah,
and then he
everything. Yeah,
became Hollywood Hulk Hogan, and it doubled the size of my collection. The collecting gods were very kind on that one. Um, And I have a lot of sci-fi stuff, but no Star Wars. My sci-fi roots are in the Flash Gordon serials
Yeah.
from the 30s, which were, believe it or not, uh, you know, cost more than Gone with the Wind to make, and were actually the highest grossing product of 1937. And just seeing them as a kid and not knowing that there was a comic strip, not having ever seen anything with a rocket ship,
Yeah.
a ray gun, floating cities, the Hawkmen, the Claymen, the Octopoids. They had everything, and it was exhausting as a kid. I collect lenticulars, wiggle pictures or flashers, as they're sometimes known, and there's pages of those and character watches.
Yeah,
And
I love that page.
advertising
Yeah, yeah.
watches. I collect such a wide span. And this is my way of sharing my collecting with an audience and sharing something that I'm passionate about the same way that I share a story that I'm passionate about in my work.
Yeah.
And trying to present this in something so it's not just, a flat shot of a toy, that we trying to show the life, the energy, how they interact with others of their kind. Joe shot beautiful, exceptional close-ups of so many of these things that allows you to see every flaw and every magnificent little piece of design in these. And the book's massive. It's I say it's a coffee table book, the size of a coffee table, but it's 480 pages. The book is almost a foot tall, and we have over 1,100 photographs contributed. We shot over 7,000, and it's taken 11 years for me to put all this together
Wow.
and find someone who was brave enough to publish it, and it's finding an audience, and I couldn't be more proud of it. I tried to share my passion for these objects, these characters, and I think we've been very successful. And we're not like a best-selling author, not Stephen King, but people are responding, and that was really the idea, that if it was an opportunity for anyone in the world who loves these things and loves to collect to come over to the house and walk around for a couple hours.
I get it. It's definitely a filmmaker's book. And something that's, again, so unique about this is that because you've got such an illustrious career in filmmaking and you've worked with things with big IPs like the Flintstones, it means that you've got to not only got stuff in that book that you've collected just from things that you're a fan of, but also there's things in there from the films that you've worked on. Like you were saying, all the stuff behind you is from the TV shows and the movies that you've worked on.
Yeah.
There's pages just on like the Turbo Man merchandise, but then also stuff that was like merchandise made just for the movie as movie props, and then you've got that stuff.
Right. Yes. No, we have the Turbo Ring, the 24-inch Turbo Man from the parade from Jingle All the Way, which, by the way, I was quite depressed about the reception that Jingle All the Way received from, especially from critics, but audiences as well. And so that 24-inch, beautiful, glistening, superb Turbo Man that I helped design,
Yeah.
um, I kept it in a box in the garage for 20 years.
Oh,
And
that's
when
such.
when I began to feel that wave, that the film was starting not to be considered uh, a failure, but instead a cult classic, then a holiday perennial with marathons and stuff. Well, I said, I think we spent enough time apart. We got some catching up to do, and he has been relocated into a beautiful plexiglass box in my office where I can look at him all day.
Oh yeah, and that thing now is like, if you're a fan of this movie, is like the most sought after piece you could ever want to own. Because like, just to put a pin in what you said then about like when I was making my first movie, it was a 10-year project that I worked on this movie for, and about 3 years into it, I realized it was such a daunting thing. I just was not able to finish it at that point in my life, so I packed everything into boxes, and just to think about it made me feel depressed. I didn't even want to look in those boxes. And then now the film's finished years later, I look at those things with happiness, but I get it that there was a time when you associated that thing there with like bad vibes and you didn't want to have it in the house. But I'm so glad now that it's on display, because you can also see that on your Instagram, and it's so much bigger and more impressive than the ones that we can buy in store. Like that one is the one from the parade, isn't it? When
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's
you get the
beautiful.
limited edition Turbo Man. Turbo Man's going to give it to one kid in the audience. It's that
Right.
one.
Yes, it is.
And all that again is covered in the book with all the other props in there as well.
Yeah, no. And one of the things that I'm very happy to that we could share were the maquettes or the models of many of the prehistoric creatures
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
Flintstones that were created by Jim Henson's Creature Shop in London, which was truly one of the most inspiring place I've ever been. I have never. Number one, it was on Oval Road in Camden. Does that sound right?
Yeah,
On
yeah, that's
some kind of
Camden,
little
yeah.
river, in this old factory, which was so cold in the winter. Oh, deathly cold in the winter. Housing a never-ending stream of the most creative, talented people you've ever seen, and the sweetest, nicest people, and skilled and artists and colorists, people who did furs and skin patterns and design. It was the entire process. It was just beautiful to go from drawings of these creatures and then to clay models and then to cast them and to color them. And at one point we wanted to see what our brontosauruses look like, so we did like a coloring book page in at the Creature Shop in London. There we had like 20 at a time people come through there for like hours, just coloring and coming up with color combinations for brontosauruses, and they created all of them during that span. Just just so much talent, and it's such a shame when they closed that operation. Um, and there still is a Creature Shop today,
It's in LA,
and
right? I worked on a movie last year with a Jim Henson creature in it. I didn't get to visit the store, but the
yeah,
director had been to it, and it was in LA at that time. But it's still got all that stuff there. If
yeah,
anything,
yeah.
it's just
No,
closer to you now
it
than me.
can't be what London was.
Yeah,
Uh, where they did so much of the early animatronic work. Um, what was a David Bowie movie? Labyrinth.
Labyrinth. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, I mean, you walked in and the creatures were standing there from life size,
yeah.
and there was just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of beautiful examples of puppetry, and you saw how they evolved their work from from hand puppets, marionettes, sock puppets, really like Kermit, to very sophisticated animatronic pieces, and finally into digital puppets that they could operate. If you look at my film Are We There Yet with Ice Cube, the Henson Creature Shop did the bobblehead of Satchel Paige, the legendary baseball player who was Ice Cube's idol in the movie, who sat on his dash and commented on all his errors in dating, etc. And that was performed by a digital puppet, meaning someone operating the eyes, face,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
stuff.
remember that. I liked that movie when it came out. I remember enjoying it a lot, the one with Ice Cube. And do you know that when you're working on a film like going back to Flintstones, that's got so much going on, you've got so much talent around you, so many different puppets and animatronics and such huge sets with giant buildings and Flintstones cars. You've got this Flintstones car there, and then you're doing like Jingle All The Way, where not only are you doing like giant parade scenes with all these different characters dressed up, you've got marching bands and everything, and then you're working with like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like the biggest star in the world, right between like True Lies and Batman and Robin, when he's like really at his height of his career, a couple of years after Terminator 2. That's like a lot to deal with as a director. Like, how do you even like deal with handling all that stuff together?
I get stoned on the way to work. That would usually help. Uh, calm the nerves. It was nerve wracking. No, there was a lot at stake. It
For
was a
sure.
big budget on the Flintstones movie and on Jingle, and there's a lot of pressure that goes along with that. And and although both films were planned, in incredible detail, and we stuck to the plan. But when the opportunity arises where you feel something different would work better, you go with it and you make it up as you go along. So there's a lot of brinksmanship involved in this work, and as well in TV. It's, I mean, it's one thing to have, 23 months. I was on the Flintstones from my first meeting until the release. That's a lot different than where you walk into a TV show and you got to crank out 26 episodes in a couple months, and
Yeah.
and you want it to be good, and you want it to be consistent, and you want to make it funny. uh these are tough jobs. That's why they pay well. uh
Mm.
and the penalty for not succeeding is tough. I mean, after Jingle, I mean, I pretty much went into director's prison for a couple of years, and you know how hard it is with a guy with a record to get a gig. uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
these things, they
It's
your life
brutal. Yeah.
and future hang in the balance. But if you just concentrate on telling a story and trying to deliver the best version you possibly can of that story, um, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. But it's hard work. It's exhausting. I mean, I think the last time I worked in the United States, my second Scooby Doo film, a wonderful Scooby chapter too, and the two CGI live action Scooby films I made for the Cartoon Network. And we shot the one here, and I think it was 23 days, and it was like 1,400 setups, which is outrageous, and all the work that's necessary to film the interactions of the creatures and Scooby that will be put in post by animators in Korea.
No way. Yeah. That's not
It's exhausting, and literally, I rented a hotel room and slept for 24 hours. uh it's tough, and when you look at Clint Eastwood, who's still doing this at 91, and
crazy.
Ron
Yeah.
Howard, who's a couple years younger than I am, still has this huge appetite to create. And Spielberg at 75, who is as active as he was at 25. It's inspiring, but it's a tough business, and the mortality rate of members of the Directors Guild is far lower than the rest of society.
Well, it's nice to know that like you do still have that hunger, and whether it's for filmmaking or whether it's for bringing the book out, it's still that storytelling. And as me as a filmmaker as well, it's super inspiring to me. You inspire me with what you're doing. But in terms of the book, where can people pick that up? Because I know people in America want to get it. People who watch my show in England are going to want to get it. Where's the best place?
The best prices on Amazon UK and Amazon US are on there. You'll find the best prices rather. However, it is available everywhere. And if you have a toy collector in your life, or you're the toy collector, I don't believe you can find a better present for them. And it is gorgeous. I say that in all modesty. I'm so proud of it. And usually when you make a book, you turn over the images and the writing to the publisher, and they assign art directors and people to do everything. And we didn't do that. I I
It all came from
I
you.
Joe and I did the cover, and I designed the rest of the book with some very capable hands, Sam Herndon and Dustin Ames, who have the editorial and Photoshop skills that I don't have it. But I approached it like making a movie. That when you sit and you look at the picture all day, you find ways to improve it, to resize it, and how does every shot contribute to telling the greater overall story of a film or of the book. And I think it's a really good representation of my passion and my affection for these institutions and characters and the things that enliven our life and bring joy in a very difficult world.
And I fully feel that with the project. Like I said, I'm just so glad that you brought it out, and I urge everybody to pick one up. I'll put all the links in the description and stuff like that. Whenever you hear like a guest on a podcast, it's often wrapped up with, "Oh, I could talk all day," but with you, I really could. Whether it was about filmmaking or whether it was about toy collecting, and there's 1,000 filmmaking questions that I wanted to ask you, but I know that we have to stick to one subject. And this is a Toy Talk Tuesday episode, so I really wanted to talk about the toy book, but I just wanted to say like a massive thank you for joining me today. And I urge everybody to go out and buy that book.
It is my pleasure, and we'll do it again soon. How's that?
Oh, I would love to do that. Yeah, we'll do a filmmaking version next time. We'll talk more about the filmmaking stuff
That's
and
great.
working with Schwarzenegger and making Beethoven and all that stuff. Do you know what I mean? When I talk to you and like you're doing a bit of research, okay, let me see stuff that he's directed that I didn't know he made, and you think, wow, man, the amount of stuff that this guy's made, absolutely amazing. So yeah, it's just for you to take the time out to do this for Toy Talk Tuesday. Myself and the people that watch this show and my toy community do really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Wow, how cool was that? How awesome is Brian Levant? Like I just said to him, I could have sat talking to him all day, asking him 1,000 questions. Hopefully we'll get to do that part 2 at some point and talk more about the filmmaking stuff. Today we really did have to concentrate on the book, and it's a Toy Talk Tuesday episode and stuff, but yeah, I really hope that you go and support that book because it's absolutely awesome. All the stuff that this guy's worked on, from Happy Days and Mork and Mindy to Beethoven to working with a Jim Henson Creature Shop on the Flintstones movies, and then of course working with Schwarzenegger on Jingle All The Way and Turbo Man and all the props that he's got. I could have asked this guy 1,000 more questions. So if any of that, even a percentage of that, is archived in this book that is being released, then it's worth it just for that. So I really do hope that you support it. And like I said, I'm going to put all the links in the descriptions below so you can find out where you can cop yourself one or get one for somebody that you know that you think might be interested in this kind of thing. But come on, who doesn't want that book? That's so cool. Also, I want to know, are you going to be watching Jingle All The Way now after watching this? Or have you watched it already? I watched it last night, and I watch it every Christmas, but last night I was working on my new toy, painting it, and I was watching Jingle All The Way in the background with my girl. It's an absolute classic. It's so sad that it flopped at the time, but I'm so happy that these days it gets the props that it deserves, and everybody loves it again, and that the Funko Turbo Man was such a big hit and stuff. It's really good for Brian, and I just hope that people support this new book that he's released, because he's an absolute awesome dude. The fact that he's done this means a lot, and it's up to people like us to support that. Now, because we're talking about Christmas, and this is a Christmas special episode, I'd love to know down below what your favourite Christmas memories are. For so many of us, Christmas is a time that's like solidified in our brains that we got the toys that we wanted, and we were waking up on Christmas morning and unwrapping those toys that we've been wanting all year, and it was the greatest time ever for a lot of us. I know for me it was like something that I was buzzing for, like 6 months of the year. I couldn't wait for Christmas. It used to take so long to get to Christmas back in the day when you were sat there like counting down the days on the advent calendar, hoping that if you snuck 2 chocolates rather than 1, the days would go a bit quicker. Oh man, there's so many cool Christmas memories, so I'd love to know yours down in the comments below as well. If this is your first time joining me here on Slimehouse, I'm Theo Kane, this is Slimehouse TV. We do these videos every single week, and every single Tuesday we talk toys on Toy Talk Tuesday. So if this is your first time checking out an episode, please introduce yourself down below. Let me know what you collect, and introduce yourself to the community, because we've got an awesome toy community here, and we all get together every single week for Toy Talk Tuesday. If you'd rather not comment publicly, but you want to hit me up privately, the best place to do that is over on Instagram at Theo_Kane_Slimehouse. And if you want to help support Slimehouse and make this bigger and better than ever, you can become a Slime Renegade or a Slime Alliance member over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/SlimehouseTV. That really does help me keep this channel going, making it bigger and better than ever, and allows me to keep doing these videos every single week. So in the meantime, I hope you have an awesome Christmas if you are somebody that celebrates it, and if not, I hope that you're able to blag a day off work anyway. Thank you so much for joining me today, for all the support that you've given me all year. I've got a couple more videos planned until we end the year, so stay tuned for them, and in the meantime, I'm gone. Bye!